Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Good evening, everybody. Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Inland Wetlands Commission. I'd like to welcome you to the April 19th regular meeting of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Lisa, could you please call the roll?
Ranjit Bahav, Daniel Bedecker,
Here.
Jim Connors. Jim,
I'm here.
Matthew Connors, Dave DeFlameri,
Here.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Here.
Steve Munson, Lisa Tryon, Judy Valvo, Brendan Magnan.
Here. We do have a quorum. Thank you for joining, everybody. Just as a reminder, as we continue to host remote meetings, I want to take this opportunity to highlight a few guidelines to ensure that the business of this agency runs efficiently and that we conform to all statutory and administrative rules. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website. During this meeting, if members of the Inlands Commission would like to speak, please use the raise your hand Zoom feature. All participants will be asked to be muted during the meeting unless recognized by me. Once you're recognized, please state your name and address prior to making a statement. That applies to the public and the applicants. So at this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand and unmute themselves and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
To
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
and justice
for
for
all.
all.
Great, thanks everybody for joining in on that. Next up on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on topics that are not otherwise on the agenda? Hearing none, I will move on to item D1. That's IW 230015. Mary Rose, if you could give us an orientation on this one.
Sure, give me just a second and I will share the screen for that one. This is 32 Alexander Road. It's an application by Alex Perini for a single-family addition. I'm sorry, a one-story addition within 100 feet of a wetland in the Indian River watershed. The see the picture right there. The proposed addition is within 52 feet of Carl's Brook. Applicant has proposed silt fencing between the work and the brook to protect the resource. Agency heard this application at our meeting on April 5th, and my sidewalk notes from and the photos which you're viewing. The soil report and plans are in the document links. Mr. Perini is here to answer any of your questions. There was no outstanding items from the last meeting.
Yeah, and I stand corrected. I announced this as a new business, but it's not new business. To your point, we've heard this one before.
I apologize. This is old business. That was an error.
Thanks for joining us again, Mr. Perini. Is there anything you'd like to add to the record that you haven't already said?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. Thank you. To the commissioners, are there additional questions that you might have that didn't surface in the initial meeting? Or is there a motion to either deny or approve the application?
I think we can make that motion to approve it.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here, sorry. Mr. Chairman, after duly considering all relevant factors, I move to approve application IW 23-0015, 32 Alexander Road, based on the plans entitled Zoning Location Survey prepared for Alex Boris Perini, 32 Alexander Road, Milford, Connecticut, by Richard W. Plain Jr., 2 sheets dated 2/8/23, and 32 Alexander Road, M 108-B 836-L 92 Milford, Connecticut by Nafis and Young Engineers, Inc. 2 sheets dated 3/7/23, revised 3/22/23. The information in the file and presented this evening for the following reasons. Okay. This action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristics of the adjacent wetland and water courses, with conditions including the permittee must submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit. Soil erosion sedimentation controls are outlined on the plans and in the CTDEP 2002 erosion and sedimentation control guidelines must be installed and maintained on the site until property is stabilized. Wetland notification to be placed on the asphalt and in the property deed to give notification to property owners that permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. Documentation to be submitted to the MIWA office prior to bond release. Compliance with the city engineers requirements for stormwater. Stormwater treatment must be installed as approved on the plans unless any changes are approved in writing prior to making that change. A bond of $4,750 must be posted with the MIWA for S&E controls, border plantings, wetland boundary markers, and an as-built showing 2-inch contours and locating all site structures. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent of the approval board to bonds being released. The permit is issued 4/19/23, expires 4/19/28, unless otherwise provided by statute. And that is my motion.
Thank you, Heather. We have a motion. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, I'm sorry, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors.
Aye.
Dave D. Flamary,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, I'm with the motion. The motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project, Mr.
Thank you
Prince.
very much, guys.
Thank you. Moving on to item IW 230009. Mary Rose, can you give us orientation on this one?
This is 40 Morehouse Avenue. It's an application by Cheryl Quinlan to elevate a single-family home in place at 40 Morehouse Ave with decks and stairs for access within approximately 52 feet of a wetland and approximately 58 feet of a watercourse in the South Central Shoreline Watershed. At the last meeting, Ms. Quinlan and Mr. Lockwood described the project, and the agency requested an updated survey and stormwater plan. That information has not been submitted yet. Ms. Quinlan did let us know that she's contracted for a survey, and she is here this evening if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mary Rose. Ms. Quinlan, is there anything you'd like to add to the record that hasn't already been presented? Ms. Quinlan, I believe you're on mute if you're speaking. Can you hear? We can't hear you. I can see you're talking.
Ms. Quinlan, can you hear us?
Did she just exit?
No, she's still here. No, she just dropped out. Oh, no, she's still here. Just asked to unmute.
I don't see her in the participant view.
I've got her on the participant list. And she just fell off. Nope, she came back over here. We did receive a phone call, both Taft and I, from Ms. Quinlan saying that she had, and an email saying that they had contracted, I believe with Codispodi and Associates, for a survey, and we're working towards getting the information for us as requested.
Ms. Quinlan, looks like you've returned. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
I did.
How
There
about
we go.
now?
Ah,
We can hear you now.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry. I don't know what, I kept
No
hitting
problem.
mute, unmute, nothing happened.
No problem.
Okay, so we hired someone since the last meeting where we went over, we did the soil study. We hired someone to do the A2 survey with T2 accuracy and to do a soil and erosion plan. We really hope to have it to you before the next meeting. Our house is vacant. We're desperate to begin something. If anyone wasn't at the meeting last time, we bought the house 2 years ago.
Ms.
No
Quinlan,
one-
you don't need to repeat, but
Okay.
we've already got the facts.
Okay, so I have one question, which is, are there any other conditions besides the two items I just mentioned that we're going to provide? Is there anything else we need to do to move forward that we might not know about?
I don't believe so. You've been given good guidance from Mary Rose, and at this time, if there's no further information, we can take no action this evening and consider your application at the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, providing that you provide the relevant information and plans.
okay.
At this time, I would ask the commissioners, is there any need for a site walk or public hearing? I don't believe there is, but just to make sure.
I think so. I said, it's a matter of raising a house on the same footprint and adding a deck, so I see no real issues myself.
I agree with you, Brendan, that I think we should wait until all the documents are in and then we can discuss further.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Mr. Connors. Okay, so we're going to take no action on this matter this evening. Thank you, Ms. Quinlan.
Thank you so much, and I just pray I can log in next time.
Okay, practice
Okay.
makes perfect.
Thank you. I guess
Thank
we'll
you.
drop off. Thanks so
Sure.
much.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks. All right, Mary Rose, can you introduce the next item, E1, please?
For a second. Oh, actually, no, there's a motion first, Brendan. We'd like to hear E1 and E2 together as it's a package.
All right, do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Mr.
I'll
Connors
second.
makes the motion, and we have a second. Lisa, roll call vote.
Sorry. Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Dave DeFlameri,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
I'm with the motion. We'll hear the matters together. Thank you, Mary Rose.
Thank you. I'm going to share a picture of the two photos. This approximately in this area is parcel or number 112 Merwin Avenue. And this side of the parcel is 106. These are two applications for one project that spans the properties of 106 and 112 Merwin Avenue. The proposed project is for grading alterations to the existing parking area to reduce ponding of water and to provide positive drainage to Merwin Avenue and the rear of the properties. No filling or alteration of inland wetlands is proposed as part of the project. Work is proposed within 100 feet of the wetland in the South Central Shoreline watershed. I'm not sure, Mr. Codispoti will probably show the plans. The proposal shows a stone filter strip proposed to the side of the property. Oops, there we go. the side of number 106, and an infiltration trench across the back of both properties, as well as a trench in the front along Merwin Avenue with some pitching of the parking area to have the water flow to both drainage, all three drainage systems, to alleviate some ponding that occurs on the property. The closest point the work is this infiltration swale to clean any water coming off the parking area. And it's about 2 feet off the wetland in the back. And show you that photo again. And we've got, Mr. Kenny is here as well. We've got Phragmites in the back of the property. Site was flagged by Bill Kenny of William Kenny Associates. The plans for the project have been surveyed and designed by Codispodi and Associates. My site walk notes and photos are before you and in the documents, as well as the reports and the plans. Attorney Kersaden, Bob Weway also submitted photos of the sites during and after the recent storm and tidal events. And we've got Attorney Kersaden, Mr. Weway, Mr. Kenny, and I believe Attorney Lynch on the line this evening.
Thank you, Mary Rice, for the orientation. Who from the applicant team is going to present?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency. My name is Kevin Kersaden. For the record, my office is at 3 Lafayette Street. I represent the owner of 112 Merwin Avenue, and I'm authorized tonight to speak on behalf of the owner of 106 Merwin Avenue. I just wanted to give Mr. Weway and Mr. Kenny will do the majority of the presentation. Also with us tonight is Tom Lynch. The reason that Attorney Lynch is with us as well is that he has he's representing Cal Mooney, who owns 114 Merwin Avenue. And one of the many factors that's prompting these two applications tonight is that there is a flooding issue that was common to all three of these properties. Now it's more common to 106 and 112 as a result of, once again, several different factors and layers. There's stormwater flooding from the street. There's tidal flooding from the rear of the property. We're not here tonight to point fingers or place blame on the reasons for those. There is, however, I think that we'll all probably, the people on this side of the table tonight will agree on the facts that the state has not maintained or upkept their drainage system on the street, which has caused flooding. And I know the Director of Public Works has been asking the state for many years to get that fixed, to no avail. Likewise, the condo association next door, I think there are some floodgates. We believe that it might be their responsibility to have maintained. That's neither here nor there at this point, because my understanding is that DEEP has a different philosophy or policy about how to deal with tidal floodwaters, or tidal waters in general. So what does that mean for us here? What it means for these three properties, because really 114 Merwin was impacted as well at one point in time. You've recently approved an application for 114 Merwin. Mr. Kenny was a part of that application as well. That included a single family house as part of that application. So there's been some, there's ongoing litigation. There's an action against the city of Milford. And what we kind of banded together to do is try to present a global resolution that would, we hope, semi-permanently resolve the flooding situation. Anyone who lives in the area is driven by the area, even in a slight rainstorm, can see that it's got a flooding issue over there. It doesn't really matter what the reason, but we've collectively agreed, and our engineer has consulted and advised and agreed that the best solution is to elevate these remaining two properties, elevation and grade, and these two properties are 106 and 112. I say remaining because they're kind of at the end of the line of the single lots before you hit the condo association, westerly there to the left if you're looking at it from the street. So there's no other way, even if the floodgates worked and the state of Connecticut fixed the drainage system or upgraded it to whatever it needed to be, We think that would be a temporary solution, and that what we're proposing tonight is really more of a long-term, hopefully semi-permanent solution that also sets the lots up, because they're both vacant, to potentially be developed in the future. This application will also require zoning board approval as well, if this agency decides to act favorably on it. So I don't know if Attorney Lynch wants to add anything to it. I invite him to it this time before we have Bob Wee and Bill Kenny do the presentation. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And hi, Brennan. Good to see everybody. So as Kevin summarized the situation, it's a bad flooding situation along that stretch of Merwin. My client Cal Mooney, who's also on the meeting with us tonight, has developed 4 residences, and he has permits that have been issued from the city for each of those houses. But it's now spawned litigation from Kevin's client, and also concerns from John Walsh, who's the owner of property at 106 Merwin. And again, not to reinforce or repeat what Kevin had to say, but the presentation to you tonight is really a collaborative effort of all of us to try to resolve the litigations. The city is involved as well, because Kevin's client has brought an appeal of the issuance, actually, of the permit for 114 Merwin. So we'd ask that you listen to what Bob Wee has to submit to you, as well as Bill Kenny. It's been well thought out. We've worked hard to try to reach this point where we're bringing to you tonight, again, a global solution, hopefully, to alleviate the situation on the 2 lots. And there has been derelict attention to this area, both by the state, and also Bob has basically reinforced the fact that, as Kevin said, there's floodgate issues with the Surf Village Condominium Association. When that property was developed some 25 years ago, there were floodgates that were installed, and they haven't been maintained. And we have pictures, actually, of those floodgates now that are in a rusted situation. So we can't rely on the condo association to join in and help us. And the state hasn't responded to Chris Saley's request for work on Merwin. So we believe that what we're presenting to you tonight is a solution that'll help alleviate the problems as it relates to 106 and 112 Merwin. So with that, I'll turn things over to Bob and Bill and let them make the presentation to you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and just by way of acknowledgement, thanks Attorney Kersaden and Attorney Lynch. That helps provide context. We appreciate it as we consider this matter. Mr. Weavey?
I guess I'll start off.
Do you want me to share, Bob, or are you going to share?
Well, yeah, if you want to share, but go up to the one that says Bob, not Bob Weeway, because I'm running two screens. I've got one that's got the video and audio, and the other one's just got the video.
Yeah, I'm just going to open multiple sharing, so try that.
And only just while we have just a second, Mr. Perini, you're welcome to stay, but you don't feel obligated to stay for the whole meeting. If this is of interest to you, great, but we don't, for your application,
Actually,
you
he looks
need to stay.
frozen there.
Oh, okay. Maybe he's not there anymore. I don't know.
Well, while we're waiting, my name is Bob Weeway. I'm a licensed professional engineer and principal with the firm of Codispoti and Associates, with offices located at 263 Boston Post Road in Orange, Connecticut. We've been retained by the 2 applicants and owners of the property at 106 and 112 Merwin Avenue to try to come up with a solution to the common flooding issues attributed to both of the properties. And as Attorney Kersaden pointed out, the flooding is the direct result of both rainfall events as well as tidal events, which come in and back up through the drainage system on Merwin Avenue. And in those particular events, the flooding backs up through the drainage system and then flows over onto Merwin Avenue, and then from Merwin Avenue onto the 106 and 112 Merwin Avenue properties. Prior to Cal Mooney developing the 114 property, before the fill was placed on the lots, the tidal flooding would have also been present on that particular piece of property as well. Generally speaking, the flows would have, the surface flows would basically go in a northeasterly direction across the property. And I guess before we get too much further, were you able to share, Mary Rose?
You want me to share, or are you going to share? I apologize.
Well, I guess we could start if you want to share with our site drawings, and the one I'm going to focus on is SP1.
Yep. How's that? You want it bigger, smaller?
Not seeing anything yet.
That would be a problem. Okay, try that.
Now we see it.
All right.
Yep. So that's fine there. Okay, so basically on 106, what you can see from here is that there are no inland wetlands on 106. There's a small pocket of wetlands on 112, which basically covers the northeasterly portion of the property. Those wetlands were flagged by Bill Kenny, and he'll give you a more in-depth description of the wetlands and the soils that are given up in that area. So with that being said, there is a with the 100-foot review area that's been delineated in our drawings to depict the areas that are within your review area as part of the inland wetlands application process. With that being said, we have for 106 Merwin Avenue, that property is approximately 0.17 acres in size. As I previously stated, there are no wetlands on 106. There's approximately 5,633 square feet of site area to be disturbed, of which 2,780 square feet are within the inland wetland review area. For 112 contains approximately 0.2 acres of land area and has approximately 1,950 square feet of wetlands on it. Of that, we're proposing to disturb approximately 9,000 square feet of site area. Of that 9,000 square feet, approximately 5,950 square feet are within your regulated review area. Both sites, and I think Mary Rose's site pictures really show the present configuration of the site. Both of the properties contain gravel parking areas in the front 2/3 portion of the properties. So that's a good photo there that kind of shows what's happening. Now, on the left-hand side, historically, 106 had a house on it in that front part where she's kind of pointing to. That house was demolished in the past and is basically right now was backfilled with gravel and is being used as the parking area for 106. Likewise, 112 did have did have a building on it at one time, and that was demolished at some point in time as well. When we did a file review of the aerial photography, the house was evident on, I believe, the 1970 aerial photos back to that date. Topographically, you could probably bounce back to our site plan, Mary Rose. Okay, so the existing topography indicates that both lots are flat with elevations ranging from approximately 4.0 along Merwin Avenue to 4.7 in the middle of the property, and then going back to approximate elevation 3.8 along the edge of the wetland area. So, I mean, you could what you could see through there is that there's approximately less than a foot of elevational change throughout the entire combined properties. In addition to that, there are numerous depressed areas throughout the site, which create ponding areas immediately after rainstorms and tidal events, and some of those persist for an extended period of time until the waters either have the ability to infiltrate back into the ground or be evaporated, through the weather system. And basically, most of the flooding, as depicted on our drawing, we've got the cross-hatching up there. Most of the ponding is contained up against the existing retaining wall on 114 Merwin. Prior to the development of 114, that would have sheet flowed onto 114 Merwin, and then either be dispersed to the rear of the property or back out to Merwin Avenue to the existing catch basin that's out on Merwin Avenue. We did submit some photos to Mary Rose earlier today from a rainstorm and tidal event back on January 23rd of 22. And I don't know if you could pull, okay. Yeah, so these are some of the photos here. The first photo, we're standing on number 106 looking into 112. And you can see kind of some of the ponded or standing water areas adjacent to the brighter gravel color. Those are some of the depressed areas that I was making reference to, and much of the water that's contained there is rainwater. The ponding that's kind of in the back of that, over adjacent to the wetland area, that's more ponding that was from the tidal event that took place. And I think that the next photo will show a little bit larger extent of that coming down. So this particular photo shows the ponding along the 112/114 property, the 114 property being Cal Mooney's property. And that kind of depicts the retaining wall and the fill that was placed on that lot to basically elevate the property and eliminate any of the more common ponding and flooding issues associated with the property. So this particular photo here was taken at about 10:30 in the morning on December 23rd of 22. And that was coincident with the high tide cycle for that day. And there's a photo that's a little bit further down, but the tide cycle for that day was indicated to be at approximate elevation 4.1 based on the mean sea level. And then when that gets converted over to the NAVD 88 datum, that brings it up to approximate elevation 4.3. This particular photo is showing the ponding on Merwin Avenue. I'm standing approximately at the property line intersection with the retaining wall. So what you're looking at is the driveway apron for the 114 property. And there's a little bit of a chunk of concrete right where Mary Rose is pointing to. That's the top of the catch basin. In the photo, you can almost make out a little bit of the graded area. But what you can see in through there is that with this tide cycle being at 4.1, that water is all backing up through the drainage system and raising up through the drainage system, and then it just keeps going through. It keeps going to basically the low points on both the roadway and on the lot areas. So much of the ground is flooded out there, both on the roadway as well as the apron to Cal Mooney's property on 114. Let's go down to the next one, Mary Rose.
If I can interrupt for a second, that tide cycle, I believe we had at least 2, if not 2.5 feet over predicted tide that day.
Okay.
We had significant flooding in a lot of areas of town, but that just shows how this exacerbated this problem.
All right, so this particular photo is I'm standing on Cal's retaining wall, probably about halfway down the property line, and this just kind of shows the ponding limits extending to the back of 112 Merwin Avenue, leading into the wetlands, both internally and along the entire length of the retaining wall. All right, let's try the next one, Mary Rose. And this is just a view standing at the far end of the retaining wall, looking back towards Merwin Avenue. And you could see kind of the ponding that's taking place there, as well as the ponding that's creeping into the lower part, leading to the wetlands. Next photo. Okay, and this was basically the tide chart for that day. As indicated on the chart, the predicted high tide was 4.1 based on mean sea level. So based on our survey datum, that would have been about 4.32. And then Mary Rose had indicated, I guess the tide levels were a little bit higher that day. I'm not sure exactly what the extent of the full tide event was at that particular day. I think it ranged pretty close to what we had on the survey datum. We were probably interior to the site, we're around that 4.5. So I don't think it was 2 feet above, because 2 feet above would have had both properties fully underwater with that tidal event. So I think we're in reality, we were probably closer to the 4.32 or 4.4 for that particular tide cycle.
My apologies, Bob. That 2 feet over was, I believe, at Milford Harbor and the Bridgeport tide gauge.
Okay.
And you've got a bit of a lag here, and you've got the marsh to attenuate some of that flow.
Yeah, and I know other parts of Milford. I know my street's susceptible to it, and we had quite a bit of water above normal down at the end of our road too. So I think, the tides may have been a little bit higher than was there, but that's what was predicted as part of the tide cycle. All right, let's try the next photo. All right, so this photo was taken on December 27th of 22. And what this is meant to depict is just to demonstrate that the ponding is persistent on the property. So once the water gets into the site, unless you've got a lot of dry weather and high evaporation rates, the water is going to sit there until it's had a chance to evaporate or allowed to infiltrate back into the ground surface. That outline of the frozen ponding is what's depicted on our site plans, because those limits were field surveyed on 12/27 and then transferred onto our drawings. So what you're seeing in that photo is depicted on our site plan on sheet SP1. And when we get back to that, we could just see what that's indicating by the cross-hatched area. All right, next photo. I think that's it for photos. All right, these might have been, all right, these are some of the photos that were taken by Kevin at various points in time. I think this photo was taken back in October of 21, which is showing similar flooding out on Merwin Avenue through the various tide cycles. And this photo, I looks like it was taken. All right, so back in July of 21, the 114 property was just under construction at that time. You could see the foundation that's put in. And in this particular photo, you could see that the 112 property flood limits were a little bit extended beyond what we had seen on the 12/23 and 12/27. Likewise, the next photo down, I believe, is depicting the same thing with quite a bit of flooding getting back into both the 106 and 112 properties. Okay, I think that's good, Mary Rose. If we could probably go back to the site plan. Okay, so basically, in concert with Attorney Lynch and Cal Mooney, we came up and we formulated the plan that's before the commission tonight to try to mitigate and eliminate the ponding of water on both the 106 and 112 properties. We will not be able to eliminate the flooding of the properties for the simple reason that both properties are within the FEMA flood zone AE11 and AE12, which means that for a 100-year flood event, the flood waters are going to come up to approximate elevation 11, which places the existing ground about 7 feet below that flood elevation. So what our intent here is to basically elevate the ground or to bring fill in and to be able to provide positive drainage both back towards Merwin Avenue as well as to the rear of the property, and which will allow for the elimination of any ponding on the property. And for the more common tidal events, portions of the property will still be flooded during the tidal events, but once the tidal event recedes, there will be no ponding of water on either of the two properties. So with that being said, we're looking at bringing in along that center ridge line that Mary Rose is pointing to earlier, going right down through there. We're raising the grades anywhere from 1.5 feet to 2 feet at the maximum. And then those are going to blend down to Merwin Avenue to meet existing grade at the back edge of the walk. And likewise, the grades will be a little bit elevated to the rear. And the front portion of both properties will drain towards Merwin Avenue. And the back portion, or the left side of the ridge line, will drain to the rear portion of the property towards the water quality, stormwater quality areas that we've designed. So with regards to stormwater management, because we are in the flood area with FEMA, there's really no need to provide any control of peak rates or volumes of water. So what the main focus or concentration on for this particular project is to try to deal with the water quality aspects of it. And we've accomplished that through the introduction of a stone filter strip adjacent to Merwin Avenue. So that's going to be approximately 8 feet wide by approximately 12 to 18 inches deep. And that'll be basically a 1-inch broken stone that will intercept any of the water that's coming off of the gravel parking area prior to it reaching Merwin Avenue. Likewise, for the rear, we've incorporated a berm along the far left side, which will collect and contain the water that's collected off the rear portions of both parking areas. And those have been sized to provide for the water quality volume for that first ½ inch of runoff from both the front and rear areas. And that is consistent with the MS4 permitting system, which the city of Milford is under with regards to stormwater quality. We've also incorporated a small swale along the westerly portion of 106, adjacent to the Surf Village property, which will allow for the collection of the surface runoff from Surf Village to flow in a northerly direction across across properties 106 and then through 112, and discharge it just short of the existing wetland system. And then with that being said, the soil erosion control measures have been implemented for the site. We're proposing or showing a silt fence that'll be extended from the proposed stormwater quality area, extending down parallel to the wetland system and then tying back on the other side of on the uphill side of the proposed swale. So that's a quick summary of what our proposed plan is. With that, I think I'll let Bill Kenny give his presentation on the wetland soils and his delineation.
Thank you, Mr. Levi. Mr. Kenny?
Yes, good evening. I'm Bill Kenny, principal of William Kenny Associates in Fairfield. And we were hired to investigate the two properties and determine and identify the location of wetlands on the property. And we did that in November of last year, November 17th. 2022. We also, as has been noted, we worked on the properties to the east. Those would be properties 114 through 128 Merwin. And we mapped the wetlands on those properties in September of 2020, so just over 2 years ago. And a property like this can be a little tricky with wetland mapping because you're right on the boundary of areas that could be either inland or tidal. And then when you throw in the mix that there's a tidal influence due solely to water coming out of a catch basin in the road, that also complicates matters. So for the properties to the east, we coordinated closely with the Connecticut DEEP representatives from DEEP, and they made a determination that they did not believe the wetland areas on the property were tidal. So for all of these lots, we have designated that the wetland areas are inland wetlands. I think 100 years ago, they were certainly, some of these were tidal, but with the history over the last 50 to 100 years, with all the development in this area and the previous homes and the current homes, these wetlands are now inland wetlands, and they are primarily at the Phragmites marsh. So a Phragmites is an invasive plant, and that's the dominant plant in the wetland area on the property. I've reviewed the plan that Rob has put together, and I think it in many ways it's very similar to the plan that was developed for the properties to the east, by having that biofiltration swale or rain garden on the northern portion of the property to collect runoff from the developed portion of the property and clean it before it is allowed to make its way to the wetland that's further north. So it's a very similar proposal, but without the homes. Water, there's some improvements to the property, but the water is being collected and cleaned before it goes to the wetland. Be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. To the commissioners, any questions based on the initial presentation by the applicants?
No, it sounds like a pretty good solution to me.
Yeah, it seems very well conceived and designed. Is there any additional information that we would want before taking a decision on this? Not that we can decide this evening because we're hearing it for the first time, but before the next meeting, is there any information? Commissioner Bedeker.
Commissioner Bedeker, Milford. I don't know if anyone else was thinking about maybe a site walk here. This is a little bit complicated situation.
I'm amenable to a site walk.
I personally think they've covered the issue pretty well. And us looking at it's not going to make a whole lot of difference.
Well, I think a site walk would be in order, Mr. Chairman. Also, do we have any notification or something in writing from the state that this area is designated inland wetland?
I believe that question would be to you, Mr. Kenny. Is there any formal documentation that you got from DEEP?
There is, that I'm aware of, documentation regarding the properties immediately to the east. Attorney Crusaden, have you had any communications with DEEP regarding these two properties? But
Yeah,
in my mind,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kevin, once again, Kevin Crusaden. I talked to Mary Rose about this. It had been sent to Mr. Goucher and some other folks at DEEP at one point in time, and they said, when you get a plan together, send it back to us. And I think it's going back out to DEEP, or it's already been, I'm not sure if Mary Rose sent this plan at this point in time to DEEP. However, the documentation that does exist is in the form of emails and I think it's primarily emails from Deep when Mr. Kenny and Cal Mooney had brought this application before you in a couple year and a half ago.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's correct.
basically, that basically says, we've looked at it and we've determined that, we're not going to take any interest in it, and we don't consider these to be tidal wetlands. But I know Mary Rose, maybe Mary Rose can clarify whether it's been sent up to them again.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I did not send this up to the DEP yesterday. I will send it up tomorrow. When we looked at 114 to 128, due to the catch basin backing up onto the site, there appeared to be tidal characteristics that Mr. Kenny had found. Deep came down with quite the contingent one summer day, looked at it, thought about it, looked around, and realized that as soon as the required curb went in to stop that catch basin from coming onto that property, it was going to take away the water source, and therefore it wouldn't have the flushing that it needed to remain a tidal wetland. So they determined that there were no tidal wetlands on the front of the property and that the back of the property was inland, which is what brought those lots to us. I think preliminary discussions with Deep on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, was similar. And they just wanted to see the final plan.
Thank you, Mary
Yeah,
Rose.
that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Mary Rose, do you feel like a site walk is going to be helpful for us to consider?
It's truly up to the agency. On a day like today, when we haven't had rain in 4 or 5 days, you're probably going to see something like the picture that I'm not currently sharing. See something similar to this picture that we've got right here. And if we have any rain, we'll have a little bit more ponding. I don't think we have significant rain in the short-term forecast, so I don't know that we'd see the type of rain that are in the other pictures that have been submitted for the record. But we certainly, if the agency's pleasure is to walk the site, we can certainly walk the site. It's a very quick walk. It's basically, if the owners are amenable, we can park on the site and see it in about 5 or 10 minutes. There's always the option for the commission to drive by, but then you're all seeing it at a different time, and you're not having the advantage of having the applicant there to point out anything.
Mr. Bedeker?
Yeah, my concern was trying to sort of wrap my brain around all this different stuff. The Chris Saley trying to get the state to do something with the drainage out on the street and the rusted storm gate, how that affects things. And if it sounds like there are some unresolved issues going on, that I just feel more comfortable if we get most of the interested parties sort of together. So here's what we're planning to do, and everyone's agreed on this. If I'm sorry, is it Mr. O'Malley who owns 114? I see he's here, and he would be interested in attending. I just don't have a feel like I have a complete picture of what's going on and all the interested parties in this.
So let me comment on that. We can discuss this a little bit more, but our purview is the wetlands, and so I'm really indifferent and don't really want to get involved in the discussion with regard to Mr. Saley's issues. That's not for us to solve. I personally think this is a very well conceived plan. I'm happy to go and see the site, though it's pretty clear to me that it's a well conceived plan. So
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sorry, just one last thought. My only concern would be, I don't want to delay the process anymore. Because here we have a consortium, a group of people who are taking proactive actions, and I want to be, I don't want to be a blocker. So I'm sorry, Commissioner Donaldson, Godu?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I thought it was presented very well. I don't think that there is a need for a site walk. I agree with you 100%.
And Mary Rose, did you have something else you wanted to offer?
I was just going to give an overview that may or may not help things further.
Go ahead.
This is an aerial view of the area. These are the two sites we're looking at. This is the former building that was on this lot. The catch basin is in this area over here. And if you look, you've got the freshwater marsh that goes behind these sites. That catch basin comes down here and enters through the condominium property out here in this from the state road. The maintenance of that requires a backflow preventer to be put on that pipe, which Public Works Director has been requesting for some time on there. The tide gate situation's back in here where you see there's some water that comes back in this way and comes in and out this way. Mr. Weiwei can point more of that out if it's necessary. But the sites we're looking at are right here. And as you can see, they've got water coming from the back, fresh water, sometimes mixed with tidal in a flood event. And then, but they've got water coming on them from the front, from coming out of this catch basin. So the tide or a high tide or a push tide will come in and actually push out of the catch basins and flood this street.
Gotcha. Okay, so hearing the discussion, we can entertain a motion. If there's a motion to have a sidewalk, we don't always have to agree. So as the chair, I would ask if there is a motion. If there isn't, then we can take no action. Mr. Bedeker. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I make a motion for a site walk.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second,
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Lisa, roll call vote.
Are you gonna choose a date, or right now you just wanna know if you want a site walk period?
More the
Or
latter.
okay. So Daniel Bedeker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
No,
Dave DeFlameri,
yes,
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
No,
Brendan Magnan.
Yeah, so as a chair, this is difficult, but I'm gonna say no. I don't like to break a tie, but I think the plan is clear, and I don't see a need to be on the site.
Okay, motion failed.
Okay, so going back to the options this evening, is there any additional information that anyone would like to have from the applicants before the next meeting? Especially in light of the last vote. Is there anything, Mr. DeFlameri or Mr. Bedeker, that you would like that you didn't receive this evening? Any additional plans, any additional information?
Commissioner Bedeker, no.
Thank you. Commissioner DeFlameri?
um. The only thing I'd really like to see is from DEP on their view of the potential flooding area and frequency of flooding. I didn't hear that tonight, so I'm curious.
well, I think DEP doesn't want anything to do with it.
Correct. I think that's what Mary Rose was saying.
I personally feel it's the best plan for a tough situation.
Yeah,
I personally-
I would add to that, there's no state agency here coming forward with any funds to do this. This is all funded by private citizens, so commend them, I commend the applicants for coming before us to do this. I mean, it's obvious it floods, Mr. DeFlamari. I'm not sure what else you need.
I just feel that one must take a look at the properties, and if there's flooding that occurs frequently, there's some liability involved here as far as the city is concerned. So I'd like some reassurances, that's all.
Yeah, Rose, any comment on that?
As Mr. Weiwei testified, the site is in flood zones AE 11 and AE 12. If we get water that's going to come to the rise to that elevation, the sites are going to be flooded. It's a known flood zone. The owners know that. The attorneys for the owners know that they are flood zone properties. I would defer to Bob to ask about any liabilities for designing a plan to deal with water. As an engineer, he has to abide by what the standards are and go through review by the city engineer, which we hopefully will have back next week to see if there's any issues from the city standpoint.
Mr. Weiwei, in your expert testimony, is there any potential liability for any adjacent neighbors that this plan would have an adverse impact on any of the area neighbors, any of the properties?
No, my opinion would be no. As was pointed out, Cal Mooney's development of the 4 lots to the east of us have all been raised and elevated, which takes them out of the nuisance. And we're looking at 2 types of flooding: nuisance flooding and then major flooding when a 100-year storm event comes in. So with the filling that took place on Cal's properties, that basically eliminated any of the nuisance flooding from the tidal backup events. Likewise, to the west of 106 is Surf Village. The condominiums are elevated at a much higher elevation, so that while they may be subject to the 100-year flood elevation, they're certainly not subject to the more frequent tidal events that take place in the area.
Thank you, Mr. Weiwei. I would just also comment that from my perspective, this is, as Mr. Kenny testified, this is very similar to the designs that we approved at 114. This agency did not go and do a site walk for that. We approved those plans. But I don't require any additional information. I just want to make sure if there's any additional information that anyone would like, go through Mary Rose before the next meeting. Ideally in a way that sooner than later, so that the applicant can have an appropriate response. So at this time, I believe we have received the application, and we can move on to the next agenda item unless the applicant has anything additional they want to say.
No, thank you for your time and consideration, Mr. Chairman and the agency.
Yes, thank you very much. Hopefully, you can see that this has been a collaborative effort, and we're all working to try to resolve a situation that's affected all these properties. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Mary Rose, can you put the agenda back up? Please. Okay, next up is the consideration of the minutes from the previous meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those as presented?
I will
Make the
make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second it then.
We have a motion by Ms. Heather. Can't even say your last name right now.
Glad to.
Thank you. Long day. Thank you for the motion. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Jim,
Aye.
Dave DeFlamari,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, staff
Sorry.
report.
Staff report. So, Alrighty, so my staff report obviously is in the notes. There's a couple of items that you can click on to get to training if you so choose. We've been rather busy. This week has been extremely busy with inquiries, complaints, minor reviews, shed sticks and pools, and a little bit of other reporting. So it's been a little crazy if you've been trying to get through to the office. We will have a table this Saturday at Earth Day to talk about runoff. We will, so, come on down and support Earth Day. We are accepting digital applications as always, still trying to work with City Squared and Municity to get problems fixed and working through those issues. Site status updates are in the notes. I don't think there was anything significantly different from the last meeting. The sites are ongoing. They're starting to wake up from winter. They're starting to seed and hay a little bit so we can get some stabilization and move them along. I did get an as-built in for Pearl Street and it's got an issue. So we're going to send that back and see if we can't get that fixed appropriately. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Oh,
Thank you
I'd
very
like
much.
to make a motion to adjourn if that's okay.
Just 1 second, if I could, the next meeting is May 3rd. In 2 weeks. And I hear we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
second,
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Lisa, roll call vote.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Okay,
Connors,
thank you. Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Dave DeFlameri,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Guadu,
Aye.
Brenda Magnan.
Aye, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks everyone for your time and expertise this evening.
Hope
Thanks,
you feel
everybody.
better, Brendan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good night.
everyone.
Have a good
have a
night.
good evening.
Feel better too, Heather. Bye-bye.
Night.